Hello, and welcome back to the Evil Uncovered podcast. Today's episode is part 2 of reviewing the police files that were released by the Moscow Police Department in Idaho. It felt like we went through so many files last episode, but we have not even scratched the surface. So I don't want to waste too much time chitter chattering, but I have some thoughts. The motive is so perplexing to me of this case. I really wonder who the target was, if there was a target. I mean, if they attended sports games at WSU, did BK ever see them there? Not that I think he's the type to attend like a football game or something, but I mean, he did work as a TA, a teacher's assistant, so it's possible that sometimes he was on campus later working. I don't know, in passing, he may have seen them there. Was he attracted to one of them? Did he stalk them? I'm pretty sure that he did. There's no way that he didn't know the area, know the house. There just has to be definitely an element of stalking, my opinion, but did he become obsessed with them? Was it vengeful? Did he say hi to them one day and maybe they ignored him? Did he ask one out on a date and they said no? At the Mad Greek, where I believe Maddie and Xana worked, were they busy on a shift one day that he went to that restaurant? Because it's been said he did go there because they had vegan options and there wasn't that many places that did. So maybe they were busy on their shift one day. Maybe they were short with him, paid him little mind. Did he see Maddie and Xana or their coworkers laughing and engaging, and to him they were standoffish? Felt weird in his presence? I mean, these are just thoughts. Just trying to think about the angle. What is the connection between them? Because the way that these murders were, for lack of a better word, executed, there is just no way that it was random. There's no way that even if he planned on becoming a serial killer, there's just no way that he would have targeted that house. And the police, the Moscow Police Department, I know they pronounce it Moscow, and it feels better to pronounce it Moscow, but given that it's spelled like Moscow, I don't know, Russia, I'm going to say Moscow most likely, but I know it's pronounced Moscow, just putting that out there. But they said themselves that house was targeted. They just don't know why. So it gets my brain thinking. Of course, WSU, where BK attended, and I guess he was also working at, is not that far away from Idaho State University, where Kaylee, Xana, Madison, and Ethan attended. These two campuses, not very far from each other, Pullman, Washington, and Moscow, Idaho, are not that far from each other. So, stalking, I mean, he must have been at the house multiple times. It was said by a few experts that that house had such a weird layout. It's not like your typical square shaped house. You go upstairs, you go downstairs, you probably have a back patio entrance. It had a strange layout and it had a couple points of entry, the front door, the back sliding doors, even months leading up to the murders. It was said that sometimes the roommates would come home and the back door or the front door would be open. The what about the dog Murphy running off into the trees and not coming back or barking excessively and acting weird? That had to have been like, right? That had to have been BK just hiding out in the tree line watching them, maybe trying to make friends with the dog so the dog wouldn't be an issue when he finally strikes. It's just so weird and wild. I don't get it, but lastly, my thoughts. What in the heck was that firecracker sound that Bethany heard and saw? This light show underneath her door. Like, she was on the first floor, allegedly farthest away from the incident. We don't know that BK went further than the second floor. And there is no evidence of a firearm being used, no mention of burning or anything else like that in these files at all. Nothing in forensic evidence that explains what that was. So let me know what you think that was. I'd love to hear your theories on that. But yeah, I believe in terms of the stalking, he must have been at the house multiple times, watching, learning, probably entered the house when it was vacant, maybe looked through their rooms, their items, or maybe just one of them if he had one specific target in mind. But you'd have to assume that if he thinks he's so smart, BK would have known that there's more than one person living there. There is so many friends constantly going in and out of that house on 1122 King Road. It's a known party house. So maybe that's why the police are saying they don't think like one person, there wasn't a target. The house was a target because, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to target one person. You're not going to get in and out without being seen. Like, it's just not going to work. And Kaylee was so severely beaten. Was it because she put up a wicked fight? Or was BK angry that she was there and he didn't expect it? That he ruined his quote unquote foolproof plan? Was he there for Maddie, hoping to end her life and slip out undetected? Is that why Xana was also brutally murdered, being stabbed more than 50 times? Because she interrupted? Because he was hoping she would be asleep? Why did multiple victims have the same manner of death? a stabbed lung, and stabbed liver? Did he choose these areas to target to ensure fatality? Well, we're going to get into the files and try and figure this stuff out together. So, this next file is from November 15, 2022. Officer Lawrence says, I received a call from AM. The name is redacted. A told me she was at the corner club with two of the victims, Madison and Katie. I think he meant Kaylee, but anyway. The night prior to the murders, she told me there was a college-aged male known by Madison. The college-aged male, who has been identified as CB, was acting creepy. She said he was not engaging people in conversation and he was just staring at the girls in the group she was with. A told me B, the last name of CB, typically in security and law enforcement, that's what you do. You'll address the person's first name. And when you continue talking about that person, typically they just use the last name. So this is the same person. CB had been grabbing girls by the butt and being handsy. Gross, loser, creep. A said she confronted B and told him to stop touching girls inappropriately or she would have him kicked out of the bar. A said a short time later, B was kicked out of the bar. And now this is the Officer Lawrence speaking. A short time later, I took a call from DJ. Jay told me he worked at the redacted. DJ said he has a regular customer by the name of GP who comes in almost every day. DJ said GP makes everyone feel insecure because of the way he acts and the dark things he says. DJ told me that GP lives in the area of the homicides. I looked him up in Spillman and it shows an address on Conestoga. GP has had numerous involvements with Moscow Police Department over the last 2 decades. Damn. Some of which relate to possible mental health issues. Okay. This next file is of a phone interview written by Detective Justin Dean, I think is how you pronounce his last name. So on November 15, 2022, at approximately 12:48 hours, I spoke with the redacted president, the name is redacted, RH, about the 1122 King Road residence. RH said she thought Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin may have used cocaine, but nothing big, and no one sold drugs. She said she heard a male was kicked out of the bar because he was acting creepy towards Mogan. So, I mean, I only highlighted certain points. The rest was kind of irrelevant. But this is the first mention of Xana and Ethan using drugs, which is interesting. That's a detail we didn't know about them. And a lot of people thought, well, maybe it's drug-related crime, but turns out it wasn't. So that's why a lot of people are mentioning these things. This next file is from Roger. Oh man, I am not able to pronounce these officers' last names. We're just going to call him Roger. He did a neighborhood canvas. So on November 14 at approximately 10 in the morning, he responded to 1122 King Road to conduct a neighborhood canvas in the daylight. Right behind the residence, there was a small black bag that had obviously been out in the weather for some time. There was nothing in it. I located a black vest lying on the grass next to the fire hydrant. The vest appeared to be weathered with leaves and debris on it. It appeared to have been there for several days. I checked the pockets and examined the vest, but did not find anything of note. Detective officer, sorry, I think it's an officer, John Rzinski. He spoke to, the name is redacted, KN, on the University of Idaho campus. She said she was close friends with Kaylee and Xana, and she met Xana freshman year. But she said she knew Kaylee best. I asked Kay if Kaylee hung out or associated with anyone with violent tendencies. Kay said no and expressed she was confused about the incident because what she saw on the news. Kay said Kaylee mainly stuck together with her roommates, Xana, Bethany, Madison, and Dylan. Kay said that Kaylee also hung out with the King girls, which were, and the names are all redacted, but there's many names listed here. I asked Kay if Kaylee was involved in using illegal substances, and Kay said, just coke, probably. I asked Kay if she saw Kaylee doing cocaine, and Kay said no, but she knew Xana was pretty into it. Kay said that these drugs were used but not sold. I asked Kay what she saw in the stream at the grub truck, and she mentioned there were two guys. I asked Kay if she recognized the two guys, and Kay said that she did not. Kay said her friend, redacted, were at the grub truck and saw Kaylee and Madison. Kay said that Kaylee was unproblematic and peaceful. Kay said she can't imagine someone with violent tendencies around her. Kay said she felt the same way about Madison. Kay said, if anything, maybe Xana and Ethan. I asked if Ethan and Xana associated with violent people. Kay said this because Xana and Ethan were more outgoing and hung out with different friend groups. Kay said the last time she spoke to Kaylee was about 1700 hours, which is 5 o'clock in the evening, on November 13, 2022. Kay said Kaylee showed up with all of Kaylee's roommates at her apartment, the Whites, sometime between 1430 and 1500 hours. So that's 2:30 to 3 in the afternoon. So This next file is from the same officer. On November 21, 2022, at approximately 11:57 hours, I was asked to follow up on a possible lead in the 1122 King Road homicide case. I was told a Mexican drug dealer with the moniker, and it's redacted unfortunately, was possibly selling drugs to several fraternities and sororities on the University of Idaho campus. I began contacting my fellow Quad Cities Drug Task Force detectives. None of the detectives have heard of this moniker, selling cocaine in the Quad Cities. I reached out to Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and they hadn't heard of the moniker either, but said he would reach out to other agencies in the area about this person. This name is redacted, but the officer spoke to two people and they said they never heard of this moniker selling cocaine in the area, said he would contact me if he heard anything. This next file is from Officer Lawrence Mowry. It has to do with eBay's sales warrant. So it reads, on November 26, 2022, I requested and was granted a warrant for eBay for the sale of the following items between January 1, 2022, he made a typo, 20222, to present. First item being a K-bar full-size U.S. Marine Corps fighting knife, and the second item, a K-bar 1217S leather sheath, USMC logo. In examining the files, eBay showed no purchases for the items in question. However, in examining the files, eBay showed several user IDs associated with the sale of the K-bar knife and sheath, and it lists all of the states, and then all of the usernames are redacted. Next file from the same officer. This is now for a phone warrant. The owner's name is redacted. So on November 17, 2022, JD, redacted, was interviewed from the Idaho State Police. At that time, he provided his phone to Sergeant Van Leuven, along with consent to search the phone. That phone is an iPhone XR and was transported to the Coeur d'Alene Police Department Forensic Lab. I applied for and was granted a search warrant to access the contents on the iPhone. The phone was extracted. So a lot of the files that we're going to skip over have to do with search warrants. Now I'm reading a few here and there just to kind of give the perspective of how intense their investigation was. They applied for many search warrants, for many websites, for cell phones, from everyone. I mean, they really did try their best to physically and electronically, digitally look for forensic evidence. So this next file is an interview, again by the same detective, On November 13, 2022, I was directed to interview potential witnesses in regards to the incidents at 1122 King Road. DM, I believe this to be Dylan Mortensen, was interviewed in regard to the homicide investigation. Dylan said she was a resident of the house where the incident occurred. She said she was at a redacted party at around 10:30 hours on November 12, 2022, where she was drinking. 10:30? So again, for those that don't know, security, law enforcement, military, they use the 24-hour clock. So 10:30 hours, she was at a party and drinking. 10:30 a.m.? Girl. So I don't know if he made a mistake and meant to use like PM, but that's what is written here. Dylan said she went to redacted house. I don't know if that's the Whites. Dylan said she believes she arrived home between 12:30 and 1 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I think that was a bit of a typo. I think he meant PM. Dylan said she thought B, redacted, I'm gonna assume it's Bethany, arrived home at around 20 minutes after she arrived, so roughly between 12:30 and 1 in the morning. Dylan said she believed Maddie and Kaylee arrived home at around 1:30 or 2 in the morning on November 13th. Dylan said up to this, nothing weird had happened during the night. Dylan said she and her friend, redacted, came home, followed by Bethany from redacted. Dylan said, when Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez came home from the corner club at the same time, everyone went to bed. Dylan was asked about the layout of her house. She said Kaylee's room was directly above her room. She said she lived on the second floor and Kaylee lived on the third floor. Dylan said Kaylee and Maddie both live upstairs on the third floor in separate rooms. Dylan said Xana lived closest to the bathroom on the second floor and Bethany lived on the first floor. When asked about Murphy, Dylan said it was a dog owned in common between Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend. Dylan said there were no apparent issues between Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend. Dylan said Maddie had a boyfriend who was in Boise, Idaho at that time. Dylan indicated Xana was dating Ethan Chapin, who was in the room with her at the time of the incident. Dylan did not know of anyone who would want to hurt Ethan when she was asked. Dylan was asked if she saw any cars in the area that should not be there. Dylan said, no, I was not really looking at that. Dylan said she woke up at around 4 in the morning on November 13, 2022, where she could hear Kaylee and Murphy, the dog, dancing. Interesting. Dylan said she knew it was Kaylee because she recognized her voice and could hear Murphy barking. Dylan said she heard Kaylee go upstairs and say, there is someone here. Dylan said she thought she heard Kaylee run back down the stairs. She said Kaylee sounded scared when she made this statement. Dylan said at this time she jumped up and locked the door because she did not know what else to do. Dylan said she called out Kaylee's name and did not indicate if she got a response. Dylan said she then tried to call Kaylee, Xana, and Maddie on their phones. Dylan was asked if she saw anyone come downstairs or heard anything. Dylan said no. I don't even know how they got in. We're usually pretty good about locking the doors and never had a problem before. I was just really random. That's what is written, but I think he meant it was just really random. Dylan said she opened the door when she cried out to Kaylee, then closed the door because she was scared. Dylan said she then opened the door again and heard who she thought was Kaylee but could have been Xana crying in the bathroom. Dylan said she then heard a man's voice say, "It's okay. I'm going to help you." Dylan said it was weird because the statement was not in a nice way, and the voice was one she had never heard before. Dylan said she called out to Kaylee again, and there was no crying after, and she did not know what happened after that. Dylan said she opened the door again, and the guy is right there. Dylan described the male as approximately her height, 5'10", or a few inches taller, not skinny but athletic build. She said the suspect was wearing all black with mask that covered just his forehead and goes around his face. Dylan showed with her hands the mask exposed his nose but covered the mouth area. Interesting. Dylan said she believed the suspect was white, but did not remember eyebrow color or what his eyes looked like. Dylan said when she saw the suspect, he saw her and just left. Dylan said she believed he was holding something near his stomach or belt line. Dylan used both hands to point straight out from her abdomen. Dylan then moved her hands apart and back together to simulate a bulge. Weird way of describing that, but okay. Dylan said this area was black in color and she thought now maybe it was a gun. Dylan said the unknown object had an arrow shape. Dylan seemed really unsure and said she was tired during the event. Dylan was asked how long she believed it was from the time Kaylee said someone is here to when she saw the suspect. Dylan said she thought it was about 10 or 20 minutes. Dylan went on to say she was in and out of it and she did not fully remember the incident. Dylan was asked where the suspect was in the residence when she saw him. Dylan said the suspect was between her bedroom door and the kitchen. Dylan said she remembered watching the suspect go out the kitchen door and leave. She said at this time she closed her door and locked it as fast as she could. Dylan said the suspect did not walk toward her or say anything. Dylan said once the suspect left, she immediately called Bethany. She said Bethany informed her she heard a sound that sounded like a firework. Dylan then said she told Bethany she called everyone and they are not answering. Dylan said she was in and out of it and believed everyone was just asleep. She said she then went to Bethany's room, locked the door, and went to bed. Dylan said she woke up at around 11 or 12 and called her roommates and no one answered. Dylan then called Hunter. Hunter came to the residence, went upstairs and told Dylan they needed to call law enforcement immediately. Dylan was asked if there was anything else she wanted to share. Dylan said the noise Bethany described the noise as a loud boom, but Dylan did not hear it. I really wonder what was that? Like, even if it was unrelated, let's just say, I don't know, power surged and an outlet blew up or something, like, wouldn't they have made a note of that if they came across anything, whether it's related to the case or not? Like, if they saw anything, they would have documented it. I really don't know what that was. Dylan was asked if any of her roommates shared any weird experiences in the last couple of weeks, or calls or texts. Dylan said no. It's all been normal. Nothing weird at all. Nothing really weird happens in Moscow usually. When asked if there were any altercations at the party, Dylan said no, everything was normal. She mentioned again she was with Redacted and Xana at the party. Dylan was asked if anyone was having sexual relations with anyone they shouldn't be, and Dylan said no. Dylan brought up an incident which occurred about a month prior. Dylan said she and Bethany remembered Kaylee saw a shadow while she was taking Murphy outside. Dylan said Kaylee also mentioned when she was at a Redacted 2 or 3 weeks earlier, an individual was following her. Dylan also said she arrived home one time and the door to the residence was found open. Dylan said she did not believe the slider door was locked the night of November 12th. Dylan said she heard Murphy barking a lot around 4 in the morning on November 13, the night of the murders, when Kaylee went upstairs. She said she heard Murphy go outside barking as well. Dylan was unsure if Murphy would chase a suspect outside, and she said she did not remember if the suspect who ran left the slider door open. So now he's saying here that Dylan said he ran. That's the first time I heard BK potentially ran out of the house. We've always heard it being he walked by her. Just, I would assume, at a normal pace. There's quite a few like grammatical errors and typos in this document, so it's a little difficult to like read it in a nice flow. But then this is a second interview. I believe he interviewed Hunter. Hunter said at around 12 o'clock on November 13, Dylan called Emily, Hunter's girlfriend, right? Dylan told Emily she thought something was not right in her house. Dylan also told Emily she heard or saw a man in her house the night prior. Dylan asked Emily and Hunter to come over and make sure everything was okay because she locked herself in Bethany's room. Hunter said he was the first person to get to the residence. Hunter said he entered the code to the front door where Bethany and Dylan were in Bethany's room on the first floor. Dylan and Bethany were telling Hunter they did not know what was going on. Hunter said he went up the stairs and immediately went into Xana's room. Hunter said this was the only room he went into. He said when he approached the door, it was only partially open. Hunter said when he opened it, he saw Xana and Ethan. Hunter said he initially did not realize all the blood was dried blood in the room. He said he thought at first they had been drunk and left a mess. Hunter said when he stood there for a moment, he began to realize what he was seeing. Hunter said Bethany and Dylan were uncontrollably crying, and he said he told them to get out of the house and call 911. Hunter said he then went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife from the drawer. He said he then went into the room and checked the closet to make sure there was not anyone else in the room. He said he checked for a pulse on both Xana and Ethan, and Hunter said both of the bodies had rigor mortis and were cold, with no breath or pulse. Hunter said he believed the two had been deceased for a while. That is just appalling. I I can try to visualize it in my mind, but I can't even imagine. Like, emotionally, even I just feel so flat and like numb. If I was in Hunter's shoes at that moment, I can't imagine how awful that was. Hunter said he believed he left the knife on the folding table in the living room. Hunter said these names are redacted, started to enter the house and come up the stairs. Hunter told them to get out of the residence and said this was about the time Moscow PD arrived on the scene. Hunter said the officer told him to stay where he was at. He said he did not know if anyone else was upstairs, as he had not gone anywhere else in the house. Hunter said he had trouble comprehending what he was seeing. Hunter said he was not at the redacted party the night prior. He and Ethan were texting the night prior by phone. Hunter said Ethan wanted him to come over, but Hunter chose not to. He said he knew Ethan since fall of 2021. Hunter said he was in Redacted, and Ethan was a member of Redacted. This might be a fraternity. Hunter indicated these two names are redacted, were in the same sorority and were roommates. He said Redacted, who was also present, was in the fraternity and was currently dating Jay. Hunter said he and Redacted stayed at Redacted's apartment with Redacted and Redacted the night of November 12th. Hunter was asked when was the last time he was at 1122 King Road, and he indicated the last time was on November 12th, where he was pre-gaming for the Vandals football game. Hunter said he got to the residence at around 12 or 1 in the afternoon and left at about 2:30 in the afternoon to go to a different party. Hunter said the last time Redacted was at 1122 King Road was Friday, November 11. Hunter did not know of anyone who had issues with Ethan and Xana dating. Hunter estimated Xana and Ethan were dating for about 8 months. He said he knew Xana very well through his girlfriend, Emily. Hunter said he was not very familiar with Maddie or Kaylee, and Hunter allowed pictures to be taken of his phone of the conversations between him and Ethan. Third interview. J, redacted. This person is JM. J said she texted Bethany at 11:20 in the morning of November 13. Jay asked Bethany if she was awake. She said Bethany called her back at 11:49 in the morning. Bethany told Jay she and Dylan were in Bethany's room. Jay said Bethany was freaked out because her roommates were not answering the phone. Jay said she heard Dylan on the phone in the background saying, "I saw something." Jay said Bethany asked her to come over to the house and pick her up. Jay said Bethany texted her while she was driving there and said Emily and Hunter were on the way as well. Jay said as she arrived, MPD units were arriving as well. Jay said she did not go to the redacted party, but went to a different one instead. She said Bethany and Dylan came to this other party after she left. She estimated Dylan left her party at 12:30 in the morning, and Bethany left her party at about 1 in the morning on November 13. Jay said she was in blank with Dylan, redacted, Bethany, and Xana. I'm gonna assume this is a sorority, but Jay goes on to say that Xana and Maddie were both in redacted, but they dropped out, and Kaylee was in redacted, but dropped as well. Jay suspected the girls dropped their respective sororities because of issues with other girls in the house. Jay specifically cited girls on the executive board who tell other members what to do. Jay suspected this was what they did not like. Jay confirmed she, redacted, Bethany, and Dylan were still active members in redacted. Jay said the girls who were still active members of the sorority who chose to not live in the house did so because of money issues. Jay said Maddie was Bethany's big sister in the sorority house. Jay said she knew Kaylee, saw a dark figure staring at her from the tree line when she took her dog Murphy out to pee. Jay said this occurred about a month ago at the King house. Jay said there had been light-hearted talk and jokes made about a stalker in the past. Jay said all the girls were slightly nervous about it being a fact, though. She did not indicate any social media issues or issues between the girls who lived together. Jay said there was no issue with girls from the redacted sorority and the residents at 1122 King Road. She said the front door had issues with locking and sometimes it could be opened without a code. Jay said she did not know the code to the front door and said she was unsure if the residents kept the back sliding door locked regularly. The fourth interview. LB. LB said he did not go to the blank party, said he went to sleep at 2000 hours on November 12th at J redacted apartment on Taylor Avenue. L said he woke up at around 2 or 3 in the morning and said he, J, and E were up talking in the living room of the apartment until about 5 in the morning on November 13. He indicated Hunter was present but not awake during this time. He said They all went to bed at this time and woke up again around what he thought was about 9 in the morning. L said Hunter and E came into the room where he and J were. L said D had called E at around 10 in the morning and sounded scared. So I think this is Dylan. And the E may be Emily. He said Dylan told E someone had been in her house last night. L said D and B, well, Dylan and Bethany, ran downstairs and locked themselves in a room. He said Dylan informed them she did this because of her seeing someone in the house, and Dylan could only see his nose and chin. Now, let's be real. If she saw BK's nose, that toucan beak is just unmistakable. Like, put him in a lineup. I'm sure Dylan would have been able to point him out with those bushy ass eyebrows. Don't you guys love how after that whole bushy eyebrows thing, he started like trimming his? What did he do? Wax them or weed whack him? I don't know, but that's just crazy to me. Like, really, bro? Really? You think that's going to help? Like, the jury's going to find you not guilty because of your eyebrows because you're trimming them now? Like, please. Loser, idiot, wannabe. Anyway, Elle said Dylan was freaking out and wanted them to come over to the house. So they walked over to the house. He said Dylan and Bethany walked out of the house crying. He said Hunter arrived at the residence first because he left before them. Elle said he went into the downstairs door and Hunter told him not to come up the stairs. He said he did not know Ethan very well. Elle said he did not recall any talk between Xana and Jay about boy issues. Elle said he did not see anything on social media. Elle recalled an incident from about a month prior where Dylan said there was a guy stalking her. Elle said he did not hear anything from the night prior. So I bet you he probably overheard Dylan talking about the stalking stuff with Kaylee because wouldn't she have told the police that at some point that, hey, I think somebody's stalking me, maybe it's related. Nothing like that comes up in future files that I read, so not sure what to make of that account, but this next file is initial scene response and evidence collection. They had a foot cast, multiple fingerprint lift, cell phone, laptop, another laptop, knife sheath, white blanket, blue phone, vape pen, another fingerprint lift, steak knife, which we know was used by Hunter, blood swabs, disposable camera, another laptop, latex gloves. That's interesting. Another laptop, an iPad, bedding packaging, and game bags. I'm not sure what a game bag is, but... So this was approximately 1,600 hours on November 13. This officer responded to the 1122 King Road house to assist with scene security processing. Forensic team was on scene and was preparing to begin processing the scene. Upon entering, I observed a small bedroom. The door was ajar and I could see a bed with covers and several other miscellaneous personal items strewn about. The room did not appear to have been occupied by anyone, as I did not see any clothes inside. I looked into the bedroom on the east end of the bottom floor, which I later learned belonged to Bethany. The room had normal clothes and personal items about, but otherwise did not seem out of the ordinary. The bed in Kernodle's room was situated on the south wall of the bedroom, with the head of the bed appearing to be toward the west wall. I could see a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, laying on his back in the bed with some type of blanket pulled over his midsection. Chapin's body was at an angle on the bed so that his head was up against the south wall and his feet were hanging off the bed on the north side. I could not clearly see the wounds to Chapin's head and neck area, but could see a very large amount of blood on the bed as well, as what appeared to be blood spatter on the wall next to Chapin's head and neck. I also noticed 2 large cuts to the back of Chapin's legs. The wounds appeared to be deep into the tissue, but were difficult to see due to Ethan's body position. Oh boy, that's just terrifying. Officer Smith then took me through the house and pointed out Dylan's room, which was situated on the southeast side of the second floor of the house. Dylan's door opened to the kitchen area as well as the staircase which led to the third floor of the house. So she was quite close to the kitchen and the stairs. So hearing somebody run up the stairs, run down the stairs, that probably would have been pretty clear, given that her room is right there. Upon my brief visual inspection of Dylan's room, it was disheveled but did not appear to have any blood or evidence of a struggle within. The third floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Gonzalez's room. This room appeared to be neat and picked up. The only thing of note was the sheets on the bed were pulled back in a manner which suggested somebody had been laying in the bed and then gotten out of it. I wonder if, maybe that was Murphy. You know how dogs jump up on the bed and then they jump down, and, that could potentially move the sheets like that. Officer Smith then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the third floor. This bathroom shared a wall with Madison Mogan's bedroom, which was situated on the southeast corner of the third floor. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed in the room. The bed was situated along the north wall of the bedroom, and both females, later identified as Mogan and Gonzalez, were laying on their backs with their head towards the east and their feet towards the west, which was also the direction of the only door into the room. Both Gonzalez and Mogan had numerous visible stab wounds and were covered in a significant amount of blood. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogan's right side when viewed from the front door. I remained in the room for a moment and then proceeded back outside. The forensic team processed the scene and collected an initial 56 pieces of evidence. Damn. Let's just, why? Why do this to someone? Why? I don't know. I really thought I could get through way more files than I did in fewer episodes or amount of time, but I think we went through a lot of them today. I didn't get through as much as I hoped, But that just means we will have to come back for another episode. So I'm going to end it there for today. And I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And please leave me comments. Let me know what you think. What are your theories? What are your thoughts? Especially learning this new information. Did it change your perspectives at all? So just share your thoughts. I'd love to know what you think, and I will catch you on part 3 to keep going through these files together. I'll see you next time.